Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
I grew up in the FLDS community. It is a polygamous group run by Warren Jeffs. I moved out of that community when I was 18 years old.
And I was raised LDS. Sam and I have been married for 8 years and have 2 beautiful babies.
Yes, we do. And we are excited to be back with you today. We are going to cover a fun topic, a little bit more about growing up in the FLDS community.
Yeah. When we were like, oh, should we do a video on Halloween? And we've done videos a little bit about Halloween or the lack thereof. But last week, I don't know, just like the spirit of spookiness, I guess, I ended up asking Sam some questions about like evil spirits, like if they believed in evil spirits and that kind of stuff. So today I was like, I don't think we've talked about that on the channel. You know, whether or not you can celebrate holidays is one thing, but like actual belief in evil and evil spirits and ghosts and that kind of thing is a different topic that I don't think we've covered. So I thought it would be fun to do a video on that in the spirit of Halloween. So we'll get right to it.
Yes.
And if you want to hear more about what it was like for Sam to grow up in polygamy, then please like and subscribe. And if you'd like to donate to our cause of creating compassion for these communities, these polygamous communities, and helping encourage people to share their stories, then you can click the donate button below. For those who have not seen our 2 previous Halloween, I think we have 2, but our previous Halloween videos, give a very quick, like 1-minute explanation of, did you celebrate Halloween?
No, we did not.
And why didn't you?
Well, we were told that it was basically a holiday created by Satan that was to celebrate all things evil. And so it was just something that we looked at as a very awful thing, not as something that should be celebrated and not something that anyone should be participating in, whether it's with decorations in their yards or watching the scary movies and that type of thing. We were very much against that, or at least, well, that's what we were taught to be against. Yes.
And what was your first experience of Halloween after leaving? And what was that like? Like, did it take a while to come around to that? Even now, like, for some reason, growing up, I was just never super into Halloween. And then obviously Sam wasn't. Our little girl is obsessed with it. So we've like had to like kick up our game a notch for sure.
Some decorating and that, yeah.
Yeah. But what was it like your very first Halloween?
Well, man, that's a great question. Even before I moved out of the Short Creek area, we would be out on construction sites and jobs and that a lot. And I would see people in the cities putting up their Halloween decorations and all of their spooky stuff and their spider webs and all of that. And it's so interesting because I remember thinking back on that, and I was judging them a lot, you know, because of the way I was taught. I was thinking how bad these people must be because they are celebrating such a horrible holiday. So it's just so interesting that how my perspective on everything has changed now that, you know, but back in those days, that's just anyone that even participated in it, I thought they were just these bad people. So gratefully, I don't think that way anymore, but, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, do you remember when that like kind of changed and shifted in your mind from like someone celebrating Halloween as evil to, okay, maybe it's not that bad? Or like, do you remember a shift, or did it just happen gradually over time?
It was more gradually over time. When I first moved out, one of the first Halloween parties I was invited to, I went with some friends, and I don't know. It was a little bit weird, not going to lie. You're trying to get used to, it's okay to dress up as certain people or certain things, or super scary makeup, and all those type of things were very odd to me. And also there were the dance parties and that type of thing that I was very unfamiliar with and very bad at, to try to go out and dance on the dance floor. I never grew up dancing, or we weren't allowed to dance. So, and then to dance to Halloween type music and that type. It was very unique and very interesting. It wasn't something that I was instantly okay with. I still had my feelings of, oh, this doesn't feel right because, I was taught for so many years that it was bad. It took quite a while to come around to the idea that, oh, no, a lot of people don't actually
They're not Satan
believe,
worshipers because they dress up for Halloween.
right, and they don't actually believe that these decorations they're using or dressing up as actually exist and that type of thing. It was just more for fun. And then I kind of came around to it because I started realizing that most families just had it for a fun activity for their kids to go out and trick or treat and gather up some candy and say hi to the neighbors,
Yeah, most people, it doesn't have significance beyond like just an extra thing to celebrate and to be able to eat candy, basically.
Exactly. So in my family, we weren't allowed to eat a lot of sugar, so I guess that would probably be that would have been a bad thing too.
One more reason to say no to it.
But of course, there are people that get very, like we have some neighbors here where we live now that get very into the Halloween spirit, and I mean,
our neighborhood goes all out.
Yeah,
it's super fun. But it's like I've never seen a neighborhood like this where there's like just as many people decorate for Halloween as what do for Christmas.
Yeah.
Which is, it was like crazy our first year here. And like our neighbors like warned us. They were like, be ready. There will be like 300 to 400 kids come to your door. Be ready with a lot of candy. Just know that's how it is. Like every single house for blocks and blocks and blocks all hand out candy. Like there's not a house that doesn't. It's really fun for our kids.
We've switched from shopping at grocery stores or Walmart to Costco for our candy now because we need the big bags of candy here.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun, and it's a community where there's just so many kids and everyone walking the streets. It turns out to be a great time. So
yeah, so definitely a lot has changed in your mind as far as that goes.
Oh yes.
But when Sam and I were talking the other day about just Halloween in general and kind of his view on it, and he was saying how, I'll just quote you, but basically he said it's interesting that there wasn't a lot, like you didn't want to celebrate Halloween because of evil spirits. But you guys believed in evil spirits.
Oh yes, they talked a lot about evil spirits, but it was a way they would talk about evil spirits as a way to, I guess, convince us to do certain things so that the evil spirits would stay away.
Fear tactics? We've never heard them use any fear tactics
no
before.
Religion does that, right? So, but it was evil spirits were talked about all the time of, we have to dedicate our homes so that the evil spirits won't be here. We have to always be obedient and do the things we're supposed to do, or the evil spirits could enter and take over our actions and our bodies. And,
I was going to ask that if they believed or ever talked about possession.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And did you have any experiences of like people that you heard of or that you knew personally that did become possessed or had to have like an exorcism?
So,
or what would that look like?
I don't recall an exorcism at all, witnessing one there, but I do know that they did happen. I do know that they would cast evil spirits out of people, and I did witness, I'm not going to name any names, but I did witness some people that, based on the way they were acting, they seemed possessed in the sense of the way people normally talk about someone being possessed. So I would say that I've witnessed that where it seemed like, oh, something's going on with this person. And then I do know that there were, I don't recall it. I'm trying to remember now, but I don't remember there ever being a time where there was an exorcism performed in front of me.
Okay.
But I know that those types of things happened because they were believed that if there was an evil spirit somewhere, that you could cast it out if you held the priesthood, as they would call it, which is the power of God on earth given to them, which they believed all the worthy men in the church had that priesthood.
Was there a certain level of priesthood? Like, did it have to be the Melchizedek priesthood? I know in the LDS church, I believe you have to have the Melchizedek priesthood to perform exorcisms or, getting rid of evil spirits.
Yes, all of the dedications and things that I witnessed in the FLDS church were all performed by Melchizedek holders, Melchizedek priesthood holders.
Okay, and for those of you who aren't familiar, there are different tiers in the levels of priesthood. So it's the Aaronic and then the Melchizedek priesthood. Mm-hmm. So there's two different priesthoods, so different levels. Melchizedek is the highest. So that's why when we refer to that, meaning the highest level of priesthood holders would be the ones who would perform those type of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's always the way it went. It was always the Melchizedek priesthood holders that would perform those types of things.
So were you taught that just like any type of sin would like open you up to evil spirits? I guess. So like growing up LDS, we were basically taught like, don't mess with Ouija boards. Don't like invite evil spirits. But as long as you didn't like invite them to come in on a regular basis, we weren't worried about like getting possessed or that evil spirits were going to come in and like take over our bodies. Right. That wasn't like a fear tactic at all. It was like, stay away from that kind of stuff or else that could happen is more of the way it was. Right. Was that how it was with you guys? Or was it more like fear of anything?
It was more of just, yes, it was more, there's more to it than that. Okay. Because it was, at least in my mind, if I wasn't being obedient, if I was doing things I wasn't supposed to do against the church policies or against the church rules, whether it was, I don't know, going out to see a girl or something, you know, or I mean, because we weren't allowed to date at all. So even to go meet up with a girl just to talk with her was considered such a bad thing. It was not allowed. So doing something like that on my way home, I was in the back of my mind concerned that I would be overpowered by some, I don't know what, just because I was afraid that because I was doing something I shouldn't do, that I was, as they put it, on Satan's ground, meaning that he would have control of our lives at that point. Yeah. So very interesting. And so they would often talk about the need to always have to be righteous enough to have the Holy Ghost with you at all times to protect you from evil spirits. And I will say this, one of the leaders, I forget which prophet it was, one of the prophets of the FLDS church, in one of the general meetings, everyone was meeting in the meeting house. He said, if you had the eyes to see the evil spirits just outside of these doors, trying to tempt you and trying to force you to do bad things, the second you walk out of these meetings, none of you would dare walk out those doors.
Oh, my word.
Yes.
I mean, okay. So when you say that, it's interesting because my first instinct is to be like that's intense. That's kind of crazy. But tell me if I'm wrong, but wasn't early LDS church doctrine was that in the war in heaven, where, you know, people either sided with Satan or they sided with Heavenly Father, the people who followed Satan, because their punishment was to never be able to receive a body, I had heard that they were around the earth.
I've heard that too, that they're just evil spirits around trying to tempt people.
And stuff. And I'd have to like look. I'm like 90% sure that I could find the references for that. So if someone has it, you can drop it down in the comments. But it's interesting because they don't talk about that anymore. That's not something that the church goes and like preaches anymore, right, or that you would learn if you're like getting missionary discussions. Definitely not a topic they bring up. But I know that it was in past doctrine, so it does not surprise me. Like hearing you say that, like reminded me of that. I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure that was like a very common doctrine, stemming from the beginning, the early days of the Mormon LDS Church. Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me that you were taught that.
I mean, and there was a lot of people that would share experiences. My own father being one of them. The sharing experiences of being on a walk or a hike and being confronted with an evil spirit. and trying to overpower them or tempt them to do certain things. And it was a very common topic, it seemed like, these evil spirits. And I wonder if that was part of the reason they didn't want us to celebrate Halloween, is because they were afraid that they were so real, that evil spirits were so real, that to even not talk about, they talked about them a lot, but to,
you don't want to invite them, right?
To invite them or to celebrate them, I guess you could say, in their mind, would be a great way to invite them in and to cause all sorts of problems. So,
which, I mean, I can see where they're coming from in that. Like I said, it's funny because growing up LDS, like everyone still celebrated Halloween like normal, I would say. And I think there's definitely a lot more Christian religions out there that completely shy away from Halloween for that same reason as the FLDS do, right? But being raised LDS, that wasn't a thing. Like we still did trick-or-treating. We did all of that. So the not inviting or like not being a part of something that could bring evil spirits was normally like, I guess related to either going and participating in any like occult things or any... like I said, like Ouija board stands out in my mind of like, don't ever mess with the Ouija board. Don't mess with those, so stuff like that. But they never considered Halloween as anything to do with evil spirits.
Yeah. So because of those teachings and even in where I came from, even more intense teachings like that, but even more so, the idea of celebrating Halloween after I moved out it took quite a bit of time to come around to that idea, because I was afraid still that if I celebrated Halloween that somehow I could become possessed or I could be overpowered by one of these spirits.
That's a deep-rooted fear. Like that's super.
So
man. Well, sorry, one more question before we wrap up. But obviously, both the LDS Church and the FLDS Church believe in spirits, but not necessarily like in the same way that people think of ghosts, Or at least I want to consider, I mean, they're kind of...
Yes and no.
Yes and no, right? Like there's similarities and differences between, I think, the way that we would consider a spirit and like what people would call a ghost. Mm-hmm. But did they ever talk about spirits having unfinished business or like any righteous spirits hanging around? Because in other Christian religions, like you hear of like, or like guardian angels, right? Would be a spirit or a ghost like that's still close to like this side of the veil, basically, right? Or here to help. But did they ever mention whether or not there were good spirits around?
All the time. All the time. Experience after experience after experience after story of incidences where, let's say, a car accident. And a car was rolling towards a power line pole that could have burst into flames. And just before it hit the pole, someone in the car looks out and sees a man holding, and they would always recognize this person. But I'm speaking of a very specific experience that someone had. There was a man, and I believe it was their grandfather or their father that had just passed away, was holding the car away from the power line pole so that it wouldn't hit it.
Wow.
And then as soon as the car was stopped, then that person disappeared instantly. Stories like that happened all the time, where there was someone there or something bad was about to happen, and someone and they saw someone appear before them and said, "Stop, don't do this. You can't go this way because this and this will happen." And then they disappear. They don't go that way, and then later on they hear that something down that road. You get in those types of stories where they were very faith promoting to the members of the FLDS church, because they seemed to always have this type of story where they were being protected or they were being watched after.
Gotcha. So while the evil spirits can possess you if you do wrongdoing, you can also be blessed with good spirits to help you, or guardian angels, whatever you want to call them. The good spirits will also help you to be able to avoid bad circumstances. Yeah. Was it still held to like a worthiness account? Like only if you were worthy that would happen?
Well, It depends.
it's a tricky question.
It depends because they would. I guess the simple answer would be yes. The more worthy you are, the more likely it is that there will be someone there to protect you. They would say. But that being said, they would also say, well, you weren't doing what you were supposed to. Like, for example, one of my brothers, he was not rock climbing, but they were climbing a mountain with him and some of his friends. And one of the rocks broke loose that they were standing on. And so they went tumbling down the mountain. And one of the rocks actually rolled right over top of my brother's head. I mean, he was completely banged up and scratched up and cut up. And anyway, a lot of people said he shouldn't have survived that. And then, of course, people like my mother would say, well, the only reason he survived that, he wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing, but Heavenly Father protected him because he knew what was to come, and he knew that he would turn out to be a very good boy, a very good man, and do lots of great things for the church. So yes, the more righteous you are, the more likely you would be protected. But also, they would have stories like that even some people that weren't doing what they're supposed to do, God saw into the future of their life and said, no, he's worth protecting. And
Gotcha.
So,
and would send guardian angels to them.
Exactly.
Oh, excuse me for that sneeze. Woo. But awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for
Like
the questions.
It was funny that I was like, wait a minute, we've never talked about this, which I feel like so many times we've talked about so many of like the basic things about you growing up. So I was happy to think of one more topic for us to cover.
Yeah, and I could go on and on. These types of stories whether it's evil spirits or good spirits or angels or demons or whatever you want to call them, or ghosts, they seem to appear a lot in the FLDS religion. So it's just one of those things where if you believe in something, you're going to witness it. You're going to have experiences around that. If you don't believe in something, somehow you don't tend to have those type of experiences. So it's interesting. But no, there were so many stories and certain mountains we weren't allowed to climb because apparently they were possessed with certain spirits that were bad. And anyway, a lot of that type of thing was talked about. But yet we were not allowed to celebrate Halloween. So that was a big no-no.
Well, if you'd like to hear more of what it was like for Sam growing up in polygamy, then please like and subscribe. And we will talk to y'all soon.
Thank you all. We'll talk to you soon.